From 18th in September, how far could Villa surge really carry? The season opened with a goalless draw against Newcastle and Ezri Konsa sending off Villa's afternoon into a fight for control. Brentford edged Villa 1-0 through Ouattara's early strike, and the miserable start dragged them down to 17th after only 2 league matches. Crystal Palace tore Villa apart 3-0 at Villa Park through Mateta, Gay and Sarr, and by the end of August they had crashed into 19th place. A tense goalless draw at Everton stopped the slide for Villa, but the early season crisis was already taking shape. Elliott put Villa ahead at Brentford before Hickey forced a 1-1 draw, and the hosts then knocked them out 4-2 on penalties in the Carabao Cup. Cash put Villa ahead at the Stadium of Light, but Isidore earned Sunderland a 1-1 draw after Mandava's red card left the hosts down to 10. McGinn struck early on Villa's first European night at Villa Park, and that was enough to beat Bologna 1-0. Fulham struck first through Jimenez, but Villa roared back to win 3-1 through Watkins, McGinn and Buendia. It was one of the first signs that the season could still be rescued. Buendia and McGinn sealed a 2-0 win at De Kuip as Villa's Europa League run kept rolling on the road. Marlon struck twice at Villa Park as Burnley were beaten 2-1, with Ugo Chukwa's late reply not enough to change the outcome. Rodgers cancelled out Bentancur's early opener in North London before Buendia completed a 2-1 comeback win over Tottenham. Villa's recovery had finally started to gather momentum. Gesson gave Villa an early lead, but go-ahead Eagles came back to win 2-1 in the Europa League. Cash's first-half strike stunned Manchester City at Villa Park and secured a 1-0 victory that moved Villa into the top half for the first time since their dreadful start. Liverpool ended the good run at Anfield with a 2-0 win, Salah striking before the break and Gravenberch adding another after it. Back on European soil, Villa beat Maccabi Tel Aviv 2-0 at Villa Park as Maatsen scored before the break and Malin converted a penalty after it. Villa tore through Bournemouth 4-0 at Villa Park, with 4 different scorers sharing the goals. Morgan Rogers struck twice as Villa came from behind to beat Leeds 2-1 at Ellen Road. Just weeks after sitting near the relegation zone, they had climbed all the way into 4th. Malin's brace put Villa in control on their Europa League night at Villa Park, and they saw off BSC Young Boys 2-1. Montero's late reply only briefly tightened it. Kamara's second-half strike earned Villa a 1-0 win over Wolves, extending a surge that was rapidly transforming their season. Watkins scored twice in a chaotic 4-3 win at Brighton, and Villa's remarkable climb continued as they moved into 3rd place. Buendia's dramatic last-minute winner beat Arsenal 2-1 at Villa Park and stretched Villa's league-winning run to 5. Gassan and Tielemans struck in Basel as Villa won 2-1 in the Europa League, carrying their surge into Europe as well. Villa kept rolling at the London Stadium with a 3-2 win over West Ham, Rodgers scoring twice as the recovery gathered even more momentum. Rodgers' brace powered Villa past Manchester United 2-1 at Villa Park, and the club that had crashed into 19th was suddenly charging toward the Champions League places. Watkins struck twice at Stamford Bridge as Villa beat Chelsea 2-1, completing an 8-game top-flight winning run that broke a club record dating back 116 years. Arsenal then hit Villa for 4-1, with Watkins scoring a 90th minute consolation. They answered that setback with a 3-1 win over Nottingham Forest at home as John McGinn struck twice after Ollie Watkins opened the scoring and stretched Villa's run to 10 straight league matches with a goal. Villa followed the Forest win with a goalless draw at Selhurst Park. Buendia and Rodgers struck for Villa as they beat Tottenham 2-1 in the FA Cup to advance to the round of 32. Everton spoiled the return to Villa Park with a 1-0 win, Barry netting the only goal. Sancho settled Villa's league stage trip to Fenerbahce on the road with the winner, a clean response after the Premier League setback. Buendia and Watkins then struck at St James's Park as Villa beat Newcastle 2-0. Against Red Bull Salzburg, Villa roared back from 2 down to win 3-2, with Morgan Rogers, Tyrone Mings and late Jimo Aloba sending them through from the league stage. Ouattara's goal gave Brentford a 1-0 win at Villa Park, even after Kevin Shade saw red before the break. Rogers moved to 10 goals in all competitions, and Villa responded to the Brentford setback with a 1-1 draw at Bournemouth after his opener was cancelled out by Rayan. Brighton's late own goal gave Villa a 1-0 win at Villa Arc. Bizot's red card before the break turned the FA Cup tie, and Tonali's double sent Villa out with a 3-1 defeat to Newcastle. Abraham had given them the lead before Weltermaid sealed it late. Abraham rescued a point in the 88th as Villa drew 1-1 with Leeds after Starch had put the visitors in front. At Molineux, Villa fell 2-0 to Wolves after João Gomes opened the scoring and the hosts added another late on. Chelsea left Villa Park with a heavy 4-1 defeat, even after Douglas Luiz put them in front early. João Pedro's hat-trick drove the damage. Watkins struck in Lille as Villa took a 1-0 first-leg lead in the Europa League round of 16. Manchester United halted Villa at Old Trafford with a 3-1 win. Casemiro struck first, Barkley briefly replied, and Kuna and Sesko pulled it away. McGinn and Bailey struck as Villa beat Lille 2-0 on the night, sealing a 3-0 aggregate win at a place in the quarter-finals. McGinn struck first and Watkins sealed a 2-0 win over West Ham, with the forward reaching 10 goals in all competitions. Under the lights in Bologna, Watkins scored twice as Villa took control of the quarter-final first leg with a 3-1 win. Konsa also struck, and Rowe's stoppage-time goal only trimmed the margin late on. Murillo's own goal gave Villa the lead at the City ground, but Williams levelled in a 1-1 draw with Nottingham Forest. Villa demolished Bologna 4-0 at Villa Park to complete a 7-1 aggregate rout, and the dream of ending the season with European silverware was suddenly becoming real. Villa edged Sunderland 4-3 in a breathless contest at Villa Park, with Watkins scoring twice before Abraham's 90th-minute winner kept the pressure on in the Champions League race. After that statement win, Villa's trip to Craven Cottage ended in a 1-0 defeat, with Sessegnon's first-half goal enough to settle it. The result dropped them to 5th. At the City ground, Forest took the Europa League semi-final first leg 1-0 through Wood's second-half penalty, leaving Villa with work to do back at Villa Park. Tottenham dealt Villa a 2-1 defeat at Villa Park on their return from Europe, with Gallagher and Richarlison scoring in the first half, when Diaz's late reply only softened it. McGinn's brace lit the way as they swept Nottingham Forest aside 4-0 to go through to the final. Burnley and Villa finished level at Turf Moor, with Barkley and Watkins twice pulling them back after Anthony's early opener and Fleming's equaliser. Back at Villa Park, Villa beat Liverpool 4-2 to clinch Champions League qualification. Months after crashing into 19th in September, they had completed one of the greatest recoveries in the club's history. Villa crowned their extraordinary recovery by beating SC Freiburg 3-0 in the Europa League final. Tielemans, Buendia and Rogers sealed the club's first major European trophy in decades. On the final day, Watkins scored twice in the second half as Villa came from behind to beat Manchester City 2-1 away from home. It took him to 15 league goals. At Molineux, Villa's season became one of the great recoveries in the club's history. From the relegation zone in September, Unai Emery's side ripped off a record-breaking 8-game top-flight winning run, shattering a mark that had stood for 116 years on the way to 4th place and Champions League qualification. They then gave the story its crowning moment in Europe, beating SC Freiburg in the Europa League final to lift Villa's first major European trophy in decades. What looked broken in the autumn ended with silverware, a return to the Champions League, and one of the defining turnarounds of Villa's modern era.